Thank you, everybody, for coming to the August meeting of the Library Marketing Book Club. Really appreciate you all coming here. Very excited to talk about conversations that connect with our guests. So let me introduce our guest. I know we've been talking for a bit, but let me introduce our guest. So our guest today is Brooke Sellas, and Brooke founded B Squared Media in 2012, as you see in the book, with the marketing mantra of think conversation, not campaign, a trademarked slogan, which is awesome. Serving mostly middle market and enterprise brands, services include social media management, advertising, and social-led customer care solutions. Brooke is an in-the-trenches marketer, so does it actually herself with 18 plus years of sales and marketing experience, a BA from Penn State University in media and communication studies. Brooke had her aha social media moment in 2007 when she used a burgeoning Facebook to recruit 7,500 attendees, amazing, to attend a pub crawl benefiting cystic fibrosis, which made over $60,000 for the charity. That's incredible. In 2017, B Squared Media was named Sprout Social's Partner of the Year for being a shining example of a social media agency. In 2018, Brooke was named one of New Jersey's top 25 women entrepreneurs, brand builders, and in 2022, she was named one of LinkedIn's 10 rising marketing stars to follow. I first heard Brooke on the Marketing Companion with past book club guest Mark Schaefer, and now I know Brooke is on other podcasts, including one that is from Social Media Examiner. Is that right?
Yeah. Social Media Examiner. It's called the Marketing Agency Show. It's all for marketing agency owners and agency marketers.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, and so thank you so much, Brooke. We're very excited to have you here. And if there's something you would like to share to start off, that would be wonderful.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you, first of all, for having me. I really appreciate it. And for you and for reading the book. I think, this was my first book, so I'm really interested in hearing what y'all think, because looking back now, I feel like I went too deep. Like, I think I should have narrowed it down a little bit. I think I went a little too far and too deep down the rabbit hole in some cases, which I tend to do. Like, I want to give you all of the information. And so, yeah. And it was a scary time. I was putting all of my brain on paper. And then I think I went too deep. But I'm so glad I did it. It's led to so many amazing opportunities like this one. So at the end of the day, I don't have children, but in talking to my girlfriends who do, it's very much like having a child. It was super painful, didn't really enjoy the process. But then once it was out and published to the world, I was really happy that I did the thing, and I love it more than ever.
That's a great way to start kicking things off and explain kind of where you're coming from. That's fantastic, Brooke. So usually what we do is I will throw it out to the group and see who has some feedback, impressions about the book. So who would like to share something about the book, feedback, impression, or question for Brooke? And now I'll be quiet while I wait for somebody to jump in.
Don't be shy. I promise I don't bite.
Okay. Well,
either y'all are really shy or you have zero feedback, which means it's excellent, or you didn't get through it all.
I am never,
Lori.
I would never be considered shy.
Yeah, I knew Lori would jump
Chris.
in. Yeah, Lori, go ahead, Lori. What you got?
Okay, what I want to say is I just got in touch. We changed to Duquesne used to manage us, and now we're part of Carnegie Library Pittsburgh. So we've been in a state of flux for the last couple of months, even longer than that, because we weren't sure what our future was going to be. So I didn't get a chance to read the book, but I was watching a podcast that you had with Mentor.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I
He's so wonderful.
found it really interesting. I also put in the chat real quick, one of the coolest things I watched I think it's on Netflix, has the Taylor Swift, her documentary, but then it also has her last concert, and she connects so well with her audience. It's unbelievable. It's like you want to follow her. You do. And I don't even like all of her songs. I don't hate them. I just don't like them that much. But there were two things that she did. She talked about people talking to her on social media. Thank them. She thanks them 100 times for many things. One is, this is Saturday night. You could be anywhere in Dallas, but you're here with me. Holy crow. And
Yeah.
star that big, it's like, wow, I'm important. So then the other part was that she did was, I don't want you to think I can't see you because this is we're in the Dallas stadium. She made sure that all the concert goers got a lit bracelet so she could see all along the whole stadium. And I thought, mind blown.
Yeah.
She's not actually seeing those people, but she can see the wristbands. It's like, I see all of you. Holy crows. That is, I don't know. I don't even know what to say about it. It blew me away because I thought, yeah, it's marketing, but it didn't, the way she presents it doesn't make it sound like I did it because this was a good idea kind of thing, and
right.
nudge. This really was a great idea.
It was. It's brilliant marketing, but I also think that, and I'm like you, I know who Taylor Swift is. I obviously know a few of her songs, but I haven't bought, anything like any albums of hers or whatnot. But I think what she does is she tells you who she is, right? She tells you exactly who she is, faults and everything. So she's not scared to be vulnerable, which we talk about in the book. And being vulnerable means going past those cliches and those facts and getting to the opinions and feelings. And almost everything she does is based on opinions and feelings. And I also think what you pointed out was the connection piece. I feel like marketers have gotten away from what connection really means because we're so driven to prove ROI to the C-suite or whatever it may be. But so now we think of connection as a download or an email subscription, or you added something to your cart, and that's not connection. What Taylor did is true connection. It's saying, I see you. Even though, like you pointed out, Lori, she's saying, I can't actually see you one-on-one here, but she made everybody in the audience, no matter how far away they were to the stage, feel seen. So she tried to make a genuine connection with everyone, even if it wasn't really a genuine connection, right? So I think it's brilliant marketing, quite honestly. And I'm almost positive she's read my book because she does all the things I say to do.
The one other thing, and then I'll shut up. One other thing that she did was, of course, her stage was at X. It was huge. It was for the Reputation tour. And she had separate stages further out, and she would ride this gondola above the crowd who were just screaming, going crazy. It was like people were crying like they did at the Beatles, for pity's sakes. And she would go down and then sing to those people, and she points to them as she's singing. And it's like, I feel like she's a genuine person. It's not, especially after watching the documentary,
right?
It's not totally a marketing ploy, but oh man.
Right. Well, she's authentic and she means it. And I think that's why it's easy for her to do things like that, because you would think about most artists and their marketing team coming to them and saying, you know what would really help make that connection with your audience and help make them more loyal? Going around in a gondola and singing to particular parts of the crowd. And they'd be like, no way, because they're not authentic about making that connection, right? They're just collecting that paycheck and moving on to the next city. So I think when you are authentic about what your goals and motives are in marketing, it makes it a lot easier to do things and come up with brilliant marketing ideas like the gondola, because you really do care about connecting.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great point. Yeah, it really, and she really is an example of so much of the book. She definitely read it.
I'm kidding. I'm
But
not reading it, but you know.
You never know. We could ask her. She would let you know too.
right.
She would be like, absolutely not. I have no idea who this person is.
But no, it's a great point. And yeah, I mean, and Brooke, in the book, you talk about you talk about some of those connections, you talk about authenticity. One thing you talk about in the beginning of the book, so I don't know if this is a great segue from where we are, but one question that I had was about in the beginning of the book, you talk about starting conversations with those who barely know the brand. And I think that's, that is something I hear a lot that, I think all of us in libraries certainly struggle with, is how to get outside, to get those conversations, to get to the people that barely know the brand. We don't typically, I mean, many of us don't really have much of a budget to do traditional advertising. So reaching people that are beyond can be tough. And I mean, in the context of the book and other things, what are your thoughts about how to make those, how do you get to those connections?
Yeah, I think in the beginning, it's really important to remember the onion, right? And there was going around the onion, which was breadth. And then going into the layer, like peeling the onion layers back, was depth. And in the beginning, breadth is so important. And breadth is really where you can kind of rely on cliches and facts to get to a broader audience. So I'm just literally just coming up with this on the spot. And so this may not be that relevant or great, but if you're a local library, would you be able to take pictures of, there it is.
There's
Would
the
you be
onion,
able
yeah.
to take pictures of different parts of the library and ask people to guess, where it was, or ask people to vote on a new reading chair if you're going to be getting a new reading chair, or ask funny questions like, okay, we've had it with the Dewey Decimal System. It's old and antiquated. And now we've decided we're just going to put books on shelves color coded from following our, the rainbow code, or I forget what that's called, RBG, whatever. Like funny little silly things like that, just to get the attention and to get the awareness of those people outside of your group. Because obviously these are things I would comment on if I saw it and I was a follower of yours. And then the more kind of social proof you get, which is social engagement. So the more, it's not so much likes, it's more the comments, the social conversation, and the shares that you get. You'll start to reach people who are connected to those first level connections of yours, but are outside of your followers. So like second and third connections, we call it the ripple effect. So you kind of do, in the breadth area, have to think of really creative and kind of cliche fact-ish types of posts to kind of get that ripple effect working. And then what you have to realize is, as you keep going, you're going to need those little breath questions popped in to keep, the ripple effect moving. But also you're going to have to start going into depth, because the people who have been with you for a long time and are becoming, fans of the community there, are going to need more of that opinions and feelings type content.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great point. Yeah. That's a good path. I mean, that's the trick, is kind of trying to find your way through the algorithm to get it out to some other folks. But as you said, you do things that people want to comment, want to like, want to share. Those are the things that can make the big difference.
And a layup are the polls on Facebook and LinkedIn. I put a poll out yesterday, I want to say, and I got 40 votes so far on the poll with like 4 comments. But it's funny what grabs reach and what doesn't. But you should look at these things, like go back, do a quick audit of like the past year of your posts. Look under the column of engagement or interactions and see which post had the most comments, the most shares, and then try to figure out, okay, I know this is my best performing content. How can I reimagine this? Or can I reuse it? If it was used a year ago, couldn't you use it again? Absolutely, because you probably have new people in there. So sometimes it's not about creating new content. It's about figuring out how to recycle old content that performed well.
Yeah. And you mentioned, I mean, I know you mentioned, don't chase the platforms. Like,
Yeah.
but there is something going on LinkedIn. LinkedIn does.
They just updated their algorithm. Yep, that's
Yeah.
exactly what's going on. And you can always tell because what you were doing all of a sudden starts tanking. And you're like, wait a minute, I did this last week and like it was my highest performing post. I did it this week and like crickets. And that usually means something's getting tweaked. And then more recently, it was either this week or last week, somebody mentioned or wrote about the change in the LinkedIn algorithm. So, what I've noticed, and this is across platforms for me personally, for my personal brand, Brooke, short text only posts that are tips, that are actionable tips or advice tend to get the most traction. So it's not a video. There's not an image. It's literally text. And for me and my personal brand, I might include emojis or something. But other than that, it's literally just text. So if you're connected with me on LinkedIn, which I encourage you to do, because I really do mean it. I love to talk about this stuff. I can talk about it all day long. You can go back through my past posts and see which ones have a lot of likes and comments. And for the most part, it is those text only posts. In fact, when I've been posting link posts like, hey, go check out my blog, or hey, here's a video on YouTube from the marketing agency show, those don't tend to do well. So what that's telling me that LinkedIn does not want people leaving LinkedIn. You know what does do well on LinkedIn? It's not one of those little pithy things. My LinkedIn newsletter. LinkedIn loves it because people spend more time reading something that's longer and it lives on LinkedIn. So every week I make sure I put out a LinkedIn newsletter.
That's great. That's an excellent tip. Yeah. Cause it is, I mean, yeah, like, you don't want to be chasing after something that's not going to work for you, but that is a great example. And I know it's something that we've talked about at this library. I know I hear a lot of libraries talk about LinkedIn because we have resources for people that are more in that professional vein. While a lot of our customers are definitely in the Facebook demographic.
Sure.
Then but there's a lot for LinkedIn. So very good. If anybody has other comments, feedback, please shout out, drop something in the chat, get attention, open your mic and just start talking. But I'll pause for another moment. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to share with our fantastic guest?
I was also going to say, even if you have like a social media question that's not related to the book, I'm happy to help there as well, because I know how rough it's been this year, especially it feels like with our social channels.
That was something that I was going to talk about too, was like Twitter X and that
So
changed
sad.
because that was on a lot of library Facebook and Facebook groups, and that whole Twitter X change and what is everybody doing and what's happening there. And we hear a lot of Facebook, a lot of libraries dropping off of Twitter. It's it's not the place. So
not just libraries, once they lost all of those advertisers, and unfortunately Elon keeps making these moves that are not making people feel confident in the stability of the platform. So I'm sure you heard it was, I think at the end of last week, he decided that he was going to remove the block feature. You can mute people, but you can't block them. Well, for disparaged communities, that is really the only way for them to survive on a platform like Twitter. They can, keep people away from their content in the hopes of not receiving, negative or hate speech, honestly, on what they post. So they can mute those people, yes, but that still leaves room for those people to keep commenting, around hate speech on these posts. So Twitter was my favorite platform. So I say this with like the most sincerest of hearts. It feels like Elon is digging a hole that Twitter may not be able to get out of. So, and that's really unfortunate because it was my favorite platform.
Yeah, I mean, it was just the instantaneous nature of it and the community, that seemed to be there, and it seemed like there was a lot of great conversations going on. And it's been a lot of different. Kirsten was talking about, just as we were talking about a minute ago, had some great engagement on Facebook, posting a generic question on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. And she said the same thing you were saying, Brooke: perform better if it's text only without any images, which seems counter to what what the history of where we all were.
Right. Video.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you have to understand what works for you. And Kristen's kind of showing like, hey, she knows what works best for her. And I love that you said on Saturday or Sunday, because if you think about when the average consumer, which we all are consumers, use social media, it's at lunch when we're taking our break from work. Maybe it's first thing in the morning if we're allowed to use social platforms at work. Some companies ban the use of platforms, but you can always get on your mobile phone. So it's usually like early morning, lunchtime, right after work, like 5, 6 p.m., late nights are later in the evening, and then Saturdays and Sundays. But I would encourage you to test Saturdays and Sundays. So like what we've found with LinkedIn is we'll test for a lot of our clients, and most of these are B2B brands. But they won't have a lot of traction on Saturdays and Sundays. So we encourage them not to post on Saturdays and Sundays. So they're not taking away from the algorithm by posting on days when we know they're not going to get a lot of traction. So I think, you, like Kristen says, start testing. I mean, ultimately, that's what social media should be looked at as. It's a focus group. It's a free focus group. If you've ever done a traditional focus group, they are so expensive and so time consuming and really painful. If you use social media like a focus group, a kind of a free one, you can use it as your playground to test these certain ideas and see what you get out of doing these things. And then like Kristen, hopefully can kind of find a formula that works for you. And then when it doesn't work anymore, you can iterate and go from there.
It's it definitely, and you talk in the book too, Brooke, about testing. And one thing that it is important to test. One thing you talk about, so for those who've read the book, you see that there, in the early part of the book, there's the and I'll bring up the thing here. There's the digital customer journey. So this is one of the big concepts of the book, and understanding where you are in that journey and what kind of things. And then you talk about testing that journey. Is that the same thing that you're talking about now, kind of, or what?
Yeah.
What is testing your digital customer journey like?
Yeah. So
I wasn't sure if I got it.
Yeah, no, we're talking about like the close-up view, but that's the 30,000-foot view, right? So if you think about your customer journey, which you can use this map that's in the book, right? There's awareness. This is when people become aware of your brand or your library or wherever it is, that you work. But essentially, previous to this, they were not aware. So then you want to say to yourself, well, how do I know they've become aware of the brand? Where are the places that they become aware? They can become aware on our social media posts. They could become aware on our website. They could become aware on Google My Business for reviews if they're looking for local libraries or, whatever your business may be. So try to name or list out all of the places in each of those sections where people would have a touch point with you. So consideration and evaluation. If you're close to another library, why would they choose you over that one? Well, because that one's small and doesn't have a lot of nonfiction. I'm just making all this up, obviously. Sure. But and then when they purchase from you, why do they purchase from you? If you don't know, start asking. It puts somebody through on purchase to ask for you. I don't know how many of you do purchases versus like checkouts and all of that, but a checkout, if you don't have purchases, could be considered a purchase, right? It's some sort of conversion. And then what's important to understand with all of those touch points is then going to those touch points and testing. So when we talk about social media and we zoom in on testing on social media, think about all of those touch points that you wrote on each stage and then match them to social media. So when they're becoming aware of you, what does that look like on social media? How can we test different awareness type posts? Like, hey, do you even know who we are? Yes or no? I'm maybe not that simple, but match it to the different stages, match it to the touch points, and keep testing. Because I think, when you test the overall customer journey or the digital journey, and then you test specifically on social media, like Kristen, you'll find out kind of what your best formula is for getting the most out of your efforts.
Yeah. Yeah, that helped. Thanks. Yeah, because that was, it was a great exploration in the book of that journey, and a little bit of a, um, as you said, it's an adjustment on the funnel idea. It's not, it's not really a
It's
funnel
not really a
because
funnel
that's,
anymore.
yeah.
I mean, so when I've done on-site trainings with companies, I will say that is the hardest part. When we start mapping out the digital customer journey, it's really hard. So I'm not saying it's not hard. I know it's hard, but when you do the work, unfortunately, or the deep work, I should say, because it is hard, it really does pay off in spades, not with just social media, but all of your other, in real life or digital channels.
Yeah. It's, I mean, it does definitely seem like a challenging bit of work because there's a lot of points that you need to understand, and probably things that we don't even think about and we kind of take for granted. So,
yeah. Not easy work, but like life in general, the more you put into something, the more you get out of it, kind of thing. So I would just want to preface that by saying, like, I know what I'm saying is not just like, oh, snap my fingers and I've got all the touch points, and it doesn't exactly work like that.
Yeah. Now you do have in the book, or you talk about in the book, the workbook that goes along with it. And is that a good place for some of us to start as far as, kind of understanding more about our social media and our journey?
Yeah. So the workbook we co-created with Sprout Social, which is a social media tool. And so we focused on social listening specifically in that workbook. But yes, if you use that workbook, follow the exercises in it, it will essentially help you plan out how you would utilize social listening. But I think it kind of helps you also get a little bit more strategic about social media in general.
Yeah. Well, that's great. No, it's excellent. It's a great resource, and make sure that everybody has a link to it. Jennifer put on here, and when getting back to our conversation on Twitter, waiting to see where local media goes next. Cause I agree. That was something where, you could connect with media, you could see what they were talking about, you could see the thing. And now if they're, if they start to leave, where are they going to end up? And Brooke, just curious, I know this is a total blind question, but have you heard anything about any of this, what's going to go on with where the media conversations and where the medias might go?
It's interesting. So I've seen people in media on Twitter or X asking for people to fill out like a Google sheet and share their email. And then I filled it out for one topic that I could speak on, but this reporter or journalist now emails me for all of her topics, most of which I cannot, speak to. But I think it's really interesting. I think what's going to come with media is hyper personalization. So that example I just gave is hyper personalization. They'll start using like Help a Reporter Out or Haro. They'll start using things like, digital media and or social media to build out that list, because ultimately I think what even journalists and reporters and media are now learning is that first party data is so important. Because at any time, as they're learning, a tool could change or go away or become paid, and then you can't utilize it anymore. So I think we'll see more and more media people, trying to collect first-party data and then using their list to fill inquiries on certain topics. So if you see it and you want to be on that list, even though none of these things of late not one has pertained to me, I haven't unsubscribed from this woman's list, because at some point it could apply and then I could have media coverage, right? So I think if you see it and you're open to it, go pop your name on the list.
Yeah, that sounds great. And Jennifer, I think that's great advice. I mean, it's maybe it's the time right now to now that this change is happening, to make sure we are all connected well with our media professionals, especially those who are heavier on Twitter, because you want to be there, you want to be the one that's the helpful one for them. So
and don't be shy, go out, and if you know what their handle, ask them if they have a Google Doc. Like I've seen other media companies doing this. Do you have something similar? I'd love to give you my email address and my name and my realm of expertise. You could give them the idea to do it. And then who do you think they're going to go to first when they have something with your topic? So don't be shy, about asking, because you could also be planting the idea.
Yeah. No, I think that's, yeah. It's something else, again, and again, please, anybody that has any other things, pop them on in the chat. If anybody would like to speak, let me pause for a second, see if anybody has something to jump in and to say about the book, or a question for Brooke about social media, because as we see, this is awesome.
Thank you. And you're welcome, Jennifer. I hope that helps. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't know like the full answer. I've noticed that and started to like note in my head, like, things are rapidly going downhill here. And it feels like people are like throwing out like life rafts from the sinking ship going, put your email and your name on this list so I can keep you if this place goes down. Yeah.
No, it's, yeah. It's very interesting to see all this happening now. Something else, Brooke, kind of that touches on what you were just saying. And so in the book, you talk a lot about, let me see, social media. That's not the end of my sentence. I'm looking for something. You talk a lot about social media. What's that
I
like?
do.
Yeah.
A lot, actually.
Almost the whole book. But you talk about, what's this? Oh, I didn't mean to switch that from there. So you talk about customers' preferred channel for sharing feedback. And so and I know that what we were talking about right now was not customers sharing feedback. So that's a different conversation, right? With a media person, providing them assistance. It's different. So it wouldn't mirror this.
Right.
But, but about this with social media and 31% and email, and when I read this, I was like, oh, but all we talk about, and maybe we're wrong, but all we talk about is, email is really king and email is really important and email is the thing. And, and social is, and maybe this is a difference between marketing and traditional marketing and maybe promotion and conversation. Maybe that's what it is. So yeah, what about that? Like, email still kind of being, is email still king for, kind of staying connected in terms of staying connected with people, not on rented land. So not on a channel where somebody, can change the rules and then, and then everything changes. So what are your thoughts on that?
So these charts are exploring the uptick in people who reach out via social media channels for support. Right. Okay. So I also talk about in the book, this is the biggest service that we have is what we call social media customer service or social care. And the reason why we have this service and even started the service, because I didn't start out with this service, almost 12 years ago. It only came into fruition about 6 years ago, was that we started having our clients come to us and say, oh my gosh, we have these people coming to social media, Facebook or Twitter or wherever it may be, and they're asking all kinds of questions and they're doing it, 7 days a week, late at night. And so by the time our employees who work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, come answer that question that was left Friday evening, and then they weren't happy, we don't even get to it till Wednesday. And by then they've already posted 2 more times and, they're upset and they're even more upset than they were on Friday. So there's kind of a couple of things happening. One is I think the younger generations, instead of emailing and instead of picking up the phone to call a support line, just run to, Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or wherever it may be. And they just are like, hey, I have this issue. But what's interesting is we also see with a lot of the brands that we work with. Now, these are mostly direct to consumer. Some are B2B, like we work with a financial brand, but a credit union, which is why it's B2B and services. Yep. But what they're seeing also, or what we've seen for them, is a lot of people are going to social media and asking acquisition questions. So they're saying something like, hey, I'm looking at your printer and this company's printer, and they're not very different in features, but yours is $100 more. Like, what's the difference? And they're not responding. Right. And we all know, or maybe we all know, or as a salesperson, I can tell you, how about that, that the company who responds the fastest to that kind of question usually gets the sale, even if the printer's $100 more. Right. So I think you really have to understand who your customers are, because if they're older, if you're really only dealing with, say, boomers, they may only call. They may not even email. Right.
Yeah.
But if you're dealing with boomers and Gen X, I'm Gen X, we email, but because I work in social media, I also go to social media to complain in some cases. So I use both email and social media, but I would never pick up the phone unless that was the only option, right?
Right.
So if you're dealing with the younger audiences, I think like millennials and beyond that, like Gen Z, Gen Alpha, then yes, you are going to see a lot more inquiries come in through social, whether that means on the path to purchase, so in that digital customer journey, but also with support, which is so important because we want to retain the customers that we have. We want to keep them loyal. And ultimately, I think what my advice is you have to meet your customers on their channel of choice. And even if all of your customers are boomers, they will have a channel of choice that is different from everyone else. So this is another part where you have to do the deep work and understand, everyone's channel of choice, and then segment your efforts accordingly in your budgets, accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah. And yes, you're right. Cause and just because it's a generational difference doesn't always mean that their channel is going to be the channel, like, the one
Right.
that you expect. Like, there are boomers that will, use social, will use,
Sure.
other things. Yeah. And you have to be there for when people do. Mary says amazed at what people ask on social media. So it
Oh
does.
my gosh.
And you have the whole part in there about trolls and how
Oh
to deal with
yeah.
that. Yeah.
We happen to work with one brand who it just can't get it together internally with their customer service. And by service, I mean like the service technicians who come out to your home and service these appliances that they sell. And because of that, on social, we are constantly dealing with very angry people. And that's just the nature of that brand. I think, will they see, I can tell you, they have seen emails and phone call instances go down because there's now kind of a little bit of a mob mentality on social media for this brand, and it's super unfortunate, but people can see, thank goodness they have outsourced to us. And so we're handling it over there, every single day of the year to handle it. But they see that they get helped fast on social media. And so now the word has spread and more people are going to social media to help them, which is great, but I can't fix what's internally broken with their service department. You know what I mean? So there's got to be a give there at some point, or we'll just constantly be, dealing with this negative trolls on social.
Yeah. And something kind of connected to some of that is as I was curious about, I don't know, you do have the one chapter in there. There's a chapter in the book about automation and bots, and how to use some of those things. And I know that, AI is the hottest topic.
Hottest thing ever.
I don't think about 4 weeks ago, I don't think there was a single marketing podcast that didn't have an AI special episode.
Oh yeah. 100%. Listen, I think AI is wonderful. I really do. I don't think it's here to replace us if we learn how to use it. If you become in your company I don't want to say prompt engineer, because honestly, even the prompts are going to get less difficult because it's generative AI. I mean, you'll be able to just say, like you do in Google, like, give me best printers, and it'll know what you mean. You won't have to go into all the context, right? So it's not even that you need to be the best prompt engineer at your company, but if you become the person within your company who uses AI to be the most efficient, you're not losing your job. In fact, you're probably going to expand your role or get placed into a different role to help other people understand how to use it. I do think it will replace 80% of knowledge workers. So like the little mundane tasks that you have at your job, AI will probably be able to do for you. And that's a good thing, because then you can take those hours saved on those efficiencies and reinvest in things that AI can't do. AI can never take away your experience, right? If I were to ask AI to write me a 150 word blog post on libraries, right?
Right.
They would put out a very nice 150 word post. But if I ask somebody who's been in the library business for 30 plus years, their post would be full of stories and personal anecdotes, things that AI will never be able to do. So you need to be thinking about how you can use AI more efficiently, while at the same time reinvesting those hours that you get back into strategy and creative. And creative meaning like storytelling, your experience. Does that make sense? Is that helpful?
It really does. I see heads nodding. Yeah, because that's again, obviously, it's a big conversation among this community, the same as others. And yeah, what's going to go on with AI? What does this mean for us? And what does this mean for how we get things done? I mean, I know there's been some AI, and I was curious about your take on some of the older AI. Like Facebook instant responses to questions. And then I mean, even in the book, you talk about, well, there's the response to get somebody the response, and then there's the problem solving. So I was curious what your thoughts were on those kind of auto responses for some of those. Are they valuable? Are they, are people getting sick of them? Are people ignoring them?
No, I think they're valuable when you have frequently asked questions, right? So if you constantly get asked, where are you located? What are your hours? What happens if I miss a return date? All the things that you probably hear all the time. A bot can absolutely answer those FAQs 24/7 with 100% accuracy. So for FAQs, easy FAQs, frequently asked questions, use a bot by all means. It's on 24/7. When the bot is on and you're not available, maybe you only work Monday through Friday 9 to 5, I would have kind of a different operation set up where the bot says, our humans are currently sleeping because it's late at night, or our humans are currently living their lives. Hello, it's called work-life balance. And feel free to be funny, right? But leave me your message today, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever it is, and our human will get back to you by Tuesday. Whatever the answer is that you can deliver, I would say under promise and over deliver. So if you can't get back until Tuesday, say Wednesday, middle of next week, and then get back by Wednesday. If you can get back on Monday, say something like, we'll get back to you by end of day Monday or perhaps Tuesday, but then get back to somebody on Monday, because it puts trust in the bot that you're going to do what the bot says you're going to do. And it also immediately gives you authenticity, because you're saying, I'm a bot and our humans are away, right? Or that's what your bot's saying. So I don't see any problems with using bots for FAQs. However, when you have a client like the one that I was talking about earlier, where questions are very detailed, they need instructions, they need empathy because they're already so mad. We don't use a bot, and the client doesn't want to use a bot because for them, they know the atmosphere is negative, and a bot would probably make that way worse. So, in that situation, we do not use one. But in the situation like the financial client, a lot of their questions are like, where are you located? Where are your ATMs located? What are your hours today? How can I change my password? I can't get into my account. Those things you could definitely use a bot for.
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you. That's wonderful advice. Yeah, we're getting about 10 minutes left here. Again, anybody has any questions, drop them in the chat. Anybody would like to speak, pop in. Hey, Lori.
It's kind of similar to a message machine in a way.
Yes, it's today's answer to an answering machine.
We're calling.
Yeah.
It's today's it's a modern answering machine. It's just way more intelligent than it used to be, right? Because it was one way. Back then, you had to leave your message and then wait for the other person to call you back. The bot is a little more two-way. I wouldn't say it's like ultimate true connection, but if it answers that person's frequently asked question and they get the answer quickly and they can go away and be on their way, then it's done its job. And you haven't lost any connection points based on that.
I like how they say too, a lot of them will say, was this helpful or not? It's like, no. So, okay, then we'll get back to you. The other thing, when we were talking about AI real quick, one of the scary things is some attorney used AI.
I saw that.
Yes.
Not good.
Henry Buck was one of the sources. Never happened. The case
fake sources.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about, oh my God, reliability. And the judge, called him on it and the whole bit. It was like, oh, so embarrassing. Due diligence.
It is.
Oh,
but I think
it's going to come. I think it'll be like,
it'll get there. It'll be able to cite better sources. But also, here's what I think about AI too. Talking about like, will AI take my job? AI may take the job of some content writers, probably ones who were, in all honesty, kind of average or below average, right? But I think what job will actually increase are editors. Because you need someone to come in and, well, first of all, what you get from AI as a draft is terrible, right? It's like firstly, and you're like, no one says firstly in real life. Don't ever say that again. So you've got to come through and edit it. You also have to come through and edit for tone and voice, right? You can kind of train AI on tone and voice, and it does a pretty decent job. But again, those anecdotal stories, that experience that you lend, I think editors will be sorely needed in the upcoming days when people do try to like cut costs for content and use AI. They'll still need a really fabulous editor.
I think there's that essence of discernment to go through. I mean, like, yeah, you can do some legal research on Google Scholar, but is it the best place? Maybe not. And it's not the only place. So for somebody who's been doing law research, at least here for 15 years,
right?
Almost, 30, 40 years a librarian. So it's like, I know a little bit about,
what's going on. Right. Well, I think what else will happen is once all of these large language models like Claude or ChatGPT kind of get really good at what they do, which will only take 1 to 2 years, right? Because we're talking about AI that has machine learning. Machine learning means it learns on its own. It doesn't need was this helpful or not, right? Because it's learning on its own if it was helpful or not. So within 1 to 2 years, I think it'll be where it needs to go. But then I think what'll happen is they'll start niching out into different industries. So there'll be like a law bot that has consumed every piece of law that's ever been written, knows the outcome, and you'll be able to go to Lawbot and get actual real life case studies, case law for your argument or for your client or whatever it may be.
A couple of the companies, Lexis and Westlaw, are the two big databases for law. They are only using AI on their own knowledge bank, so that it isn't like out in the whole internet universe and you never know what you're getting. So that's a smart thing on their part. But
it is smart. I mean, and if you have the resources, you can build your own private network, or you could use a tool. And then make sure, if you are using a tool, like I'm sorry, outside of like ChatGPT, but say you have a social media tool and they talk to you about that, our tool uses AI to help with responses. You need to make sure that you ask that tool what AI they're using. Is it open source? Is it sharing, non-sharing? Because ultimately you want to make sure that it isn't sharing and that it's on a private server and it is a closed model, so that the information you're putting in for yourself or for clients is not getting shared to open source. Or if you use open source AI like ChatGPT, make sure you scrub out any personal identifiers or company identifiers before you play with it.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, because it's just as easy to put in something and say, "Hey, can you rewrite this for me?" And you put in a bunch of
Uh-huh.
private information, and
Well,
now
and I'm
it's
sure you
part of the
saw this
model. Yeah.
too. The Copyright and Patent Office in the US has said that anything written by AI cannot be copyrighted.
Yeah, which is like huge. Which I even heard a conversation about this yesterday on this whole marketing, and they were talking about even like technically then even autocomplete, when you use autocomplete on a document, that's AI. So could
Right.
that even technically not be copyrightable? So
Right.
yeah, it's
Again, that's why
very
these editors are
interesting.
going to be so important
Yeah.
because you'll create it in AI first, and the editor will have to go through and judge to make it all human written, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, Mary says she's never had a good experience with a bot. Mary, I hope that changes.
I've
I
had
hope.
very limited good experiences myself,
I
Mary.
hate bots. I hate them. They make me crazy. They
Oh,
never help me.
yeah.
It makes me crazy. So
I agree. I agree. And that's the other thing. I guess we all rushed out, so bots are like basic AI, right?
Mhm.
They
Right.
don't have machine learning. They don't learn. We give them a directive and they work off that directive. But that's why they're not that good, right? Because the humans went and set them up. We gave them like, here's a few questions you might get. And then any other questions that come outside of that data set, the bot's like, I'm sorry, does not compute. And then you get a bad experience. So yeah, I think, whether you're using basic AI like bots or whether you're using generative AI, you really have to have a strategy and know what you're doing before you put it to use because it can backfire on you.
Well, Brooke, we got just a few minutes left. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us today. This was fantastic. I hope you had a good time.
Thank you.
Is so what's going on now? What you got another book? You got where should we follow you? What should we do?
So many
What kind of
things.
things? Yeah, what kind of things? How should we connect with you, or what kind of
Yeah.
things should we look to get to the next step?
I would have previously said Twitter, but don't go there because I'm very not spending very much time there at all these days. LinkedIn is where I'm spending most of my time. So if you
Okay.
want to connect with me on LinkedIn, just let me know that we chatted here. I'll
Yeah.
know who you are and that you're not going to like sell me some 12-step program to become a bajillionaire. um, and as far as what I'm working, I just released 2 new courses. One's free.
Okay.
If
Oh,
you want to
great.
test your knowledge after reading the book, I do have a
Yeah.
free course. It's meant to be a 7-day course, but you can take it at your own leisure. But it's all about how to create that content that converts.
Oh, wow.
So it goes a little bit deeper on actually creating that social media content that tries to connect and converse and
Oh, that's
convert with
awesome.
people. So you can go take that totally free. And then the other one I have may or may not apply here, but that's a paid course and it's
Mhm.
all about social CX. So I've
Okay.
literally taken that blueprint in part 2 of the book on like how we
Mhm.
operationalize CX. I turned that into an on-site training, which some of our clients have taken. And then I turned the on-site training into an online training.
Oh.
So that's really, teaching social media or CX professionals like how to operationalize, how to actually create a social CX program within their
Oh,
company.
wow. That's fantastic. No, that's great.
Thanks.
We'll definitely keep that and share that too. That's wonderful. Well, very
Yeah.
cool. And the last thing before we go, Brooke, there are 14 people on the call. So pick a number between 1 and 14, and they'll win a copy of next month's book.
Ooh, well, 5's my favorite number. So I've got to
Okay,
go with
so
5.
and that is Samantha Bennett. So Samantha, you win
Woo!
a copy of and now I can never remember the name of the book for next time. It's Roy
I'm curious
Schwartz
now.
book. Yeah, it's it's does anybody know? Anybody have it up? I always get caught into this.
Isn't it smart brevity?
It's Smart Brevity. Yeah, Smart Brevity. We are going to have Roy Schwartz from Axios join us to talk about the book and talk about
Ooh,
that stuff. I know. Yeah, it's pretty
that
cool.
sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Samantha, I will get with you to find out how to get that. And thank you so much, everybody, for coming. And once again, Brooke, thank you so much for coming and talking with us. This was great. We'll we'll share this out with the group so people can watch it to remember that thing that we talked about, whatever that thing was.
Whatever
So.
that thing was. Yes. If only everything can be recorded. Or maybe
That's
not. I don't know.
right.
It's a blessing and a curse. But thank you all so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And like I said, if you have any questions, reach out. I really, really, really mean it. I'm not just saying it. Reach out. I'm happy to help. Ask Chris. He knows. I'm actually
Yes.
happy to help.
And I have lots more questions.
Okay, perfect. Shoot me an email.
Thanks so much, Brooke. And we'll see you on LinkedIn, and we'll
Thanks,
see
y'all.
everybody next month. Thanks so
Bye.
much. Bye-bye.